There's an old agricultural trick, whispered more than written down, one that quietly disproves the idea that building humus requires digging, turning, hauling, or sweating over a compost pile. If you ask older farmers who learned from their grandparents, you'll hear versions of the same confession. The best humus they ever made required almost no labour at all. It didn't involve bins, shovels or thermometers. It happened right on the soil surface, with time doing most of the work. This forgotten method kept small homesteads fertile during harsh seasons, and in the next minute you'll understand why this was the preferred technique for people who needed results, but couldn't afford backbreaking work. If you garden, homestead, or simply appreciate ancestral efficiency, this system might become the easiest soil-building method you've ever used. The method works because humus forms fastest when organic matter breaks down exactly where it falls. Traditional composting dominates modern advice, but older systems understood decomposition differently. Before the era of bins and piles, organic matter decayed directly on the soil surface. Leaves dropped, grass collapsed, kitchen scraps were buried under new debris, and the soil absorbed everything slowly. This natural sheet composting rhythm builds humus because it imitates forest floors rather than controlled compost piles. You know, soil organisms come up to eat rather than waiting for you to turn a heap. Fungi, well, they stretch through layers without disturbance. Moisture stays locked beneath the decomposing mat, creating just about perfect conditions for slow, rich humification. And, honestly, this is why untouched woodland soil is nearly black, while many garden beds remain pale despite constant effort. When decomposition occurs where the humus is meant to end up, nothing is lost in transport. For the modern gardener who wants humus without tools, this natural system is, really, the foundation. Now, the trick requires feeding the soil from the top down and, well, just letting moisture and microbes do the rest. To make this method work, you only need to choose a bed clear enough space for plant stems to breathe, and then begin laying organic matter directly on the surface. Grass clippings, pulled weeds without seeds, pruned leaves, shredded plant stems, spent crops, or even thin layers of kitchen scraps can all serve as the raw material. The key is not in the ingredients, but honestly in the layering rhythm. A thin layer dries out, a smothering layer stalls, but a steady layering of materials throughout the season, well, it builds a dense, porous, moisture-holding cover that begins collapsing into humus within weeks. A practical example is using the remains of harvested plants. When you pull out bean vines or tomato stems at the end of the season, instead of hauling them away, you lay them directly on the surface and, step on them lightly to help them settle. You then add whatever organic material you generate during the week. You're not turning it, you're not chopping it, you're not shifting it into a pile. You're simply feeding the soil a steady diet. Over time, earthworms travel upward, dragging the decayed fragments downward. Fungi thread through the organic mass. Bacteria fire up the decomposition process. You've done nothing but place material on the ground, yet the soil has begun manufacturing humus on its own. The reason this system outperforms traditional digging is that humus forms through stability, not disturbance. Every time soil is turned or chopped, microbial networks are disrupted, fungal hyphae are torn, and moisture is lost. Humus formation thrives on consistency. When organic layers remain undisturbed, the soil below quickly shifts into a state of balance. Decomposition is slower but richer. Instead of fast composting, where heat burns off carbon and gases escape into the air, sheet-built humus locks carbon into long-lasting molecular structures. The result is a darker, more crumbly soil that resists drought, stores nutrients, and supports vigorous root systems. A gardener using this method often notices the transformation the following season. The top layer, once rough and messy, dissolves into a dark smear that mixes naturally with the soil beneath. When you push your hand into the bed, the texture changes from dusty to sponge-like. This shift is the hallmark of humus building itself without labour. The method becomes even more powerful when combined with plant-driven decomposition. One of the clever techniques old gardeners used was planting directly into the layers they were decomposing. The roots of living plants accelerate humus formation because they exude sugars and attract microbes. If you start a crop right beside a patch of layered organic matter, the roots will dive into the nutrient-releasing zone. This is why planting squash, sweet potatoes or beans in layered beds often produces stronger yields. These crops stretch their roots horizontally through the decaying layers and vertically into the soil below, creating a two-tier nutrient pathway. A practical modern example is beginning the season by laying down grass clippings, shredded leaves and kitchen scraps, then planting seedlings in small pockets open through the material. You're not digging a hole so much as pulling aside the layer to access the soil beneath. Once planted, the decaying layer becomes insulation, moisture storage and nutrient factory all at once. The long-term effect is a soil system that builds itself with no tools and no turning. If you continue layering throughout the year, something remarkable happens, you know. The soil becomes self-maintaining. You no longer need to dig furrows, add compost, haul amendments, or repair eroded areas. The humus layer becomes thick enough to regulate moisture without irrigation. Weeds are suppressed, and microbial populations hit a density that would take years to achieve in a conventional tilled garden. And perhaps the most satisfying sign of success is when earthworms appear in high numbers even during dry periods, because the layered surface protects them. A gardener can maintain this cycle indefinitely, you know. Whenever organic matter is available, just drop it where you want humus to form. Whenever plants finish their life cycle, lay them down instead of hauling them away. And whenever kitchen scraps accumulate, simply tuck them under a bit of the existing layer. The soil beneath will continue darkening and softening, all without a shovel ever touching it. This forgotten top-feeding method, well, it really deserves a return because it matches the rhythm of nature, not labour. Humus is not created by effort. It's created by time, moisture, biology and stability. When you allow all four to work together on the soil surface, humus forms more efficiently and, honestly, more sustainably than any turning or stacking method. Farmers who depended on this, they understood that the soil itself is the real engine. All you are doing is giving it fuel. If this guide helped you understand how to make humus without lifting a shovel, then stay with husbandry, subscribe, and share this video with others who appreciate real, time-tested agricultural wisdom. More historic practical methods are on the way.